Hey everybody, welcome to Email Copywriting for Marketers. I'm Tim Yeadon, Principal and Creative Director at Clyde Golden, an email marketing agency in Seattle. This section is going to cover writing to engage. We'll be going over how to write scannable subject lines and preheaders, headlines, body copy, and call to actions. By the way, if you take a look at the website, you'll also see that we've created several downloadable worksheets to go with the course. You don't want to miss these. They make it easy to apply what you'll be learning to the projects you'll be doing at work. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Up first, we're going to talk about subject lines and preheaders. So while we're here, you can stop for a second and pull out your phone, either your iPhone or your Android, and let's take a look at your inbox. You may see an inbox that looks a bit like this here on the screen. You have who it's from, Food Lifeline, and then subject line. Here, it's Quick Bites, join us for a season of giving. And then that space right below it is called the preheader. And if you haven't populated the preheader in whatever email platform you're sending on, it's going to grab the first live text that's available. And so, for instance, in this top one, it says view this email in your browser, and then it says in this edition. It's interesting, huh? One other thing about this, look at the subject line and then look at the length of the preheader. You have about twice as much room in the preheader to get a bit more information in. So let's go ahead and get into what makes a great subject line. A subject line should describe the content of an email in a clear and concise language that compels the subscriber to open and read your message. The success of an email rides heavily on subject lines. It's your chance to make your first and sometimes only impression, so you better make it good. There are trends in subject lines that change, but realistically, the one constant is you want it to set clear expectations of the content inside. Don't play any tricks on people. Don't play games. If you describe what's in there and they agree to open your email, try to have that align with what's in the email. People don't like to feel fooled or manipulated in any way. You can try to be funny, you can try to be sly, you can be direct, but the fact is people need to have a sense of what's going to happen if they click. When it comes to length, people are always asking me, well, how long should a subject line be? If you go back and think about what that inbox showed, you had about 35 to 50 characters tops. And then after that, they're going to get truncated. It's just going to cut the thing off. So front-loading information is always important. On this slide, we just have an example of if this is how much room you had in an iOS native app inbox, this is where your subject line would probably be cut off. It's always good to think about what that cutoff might be. Now, sometimes I get asked the question, is it better to be clever or is it better to be clear? And I think going back and thinking about what's the scenario that your reader will be in. Where are they in the customer journey? Is it a promotional moment in the journey, or is this a transactional moment where something's just occurred and you're sending a receipt? This is going to matter. I'd say regardless, you're always safe trying to describe what's happening in that email. I think you also want to describe how the customer will benefit from reading the email. Are they going to save time or money? Are they going to learn something new? Did an opportunity just come up based on something that they did that you want to tell them about, an alert perhaps? Here's something about personalization. If the content is relevant, that's much more important or effective than simply adding in somebody's name. Just putting my name, Tim, into an email subject line isn't going to help if the rest of the actual content of the email isn't relevant to me. So using a first name doesn't necessarily correspond to a higher open rate. It doesn't hurt trying. Last slide on subject lines. I often also get asked, what's my opinion on emoticons or emojis within a subject line? Here we have an emoticon on the left and emojis on the right, and they can help a good subject line if the content's relevant. They can add energy, a little bit of joy, some image that gives you a quick idea of what's in there, but they don't do anything for content that isn't relevant. So in short, an emoticon or an emoji can make a good subject line better, but it can't make an irrelevant subject line more effective. Up next, let's take a look at preheaders. If you're still looking at your phone and you're looking at the inbox, you're going to see where there's subject lines and preheaders, and you're probably starting to recognize when people forgot to put in a preheader, or for whatever reason, it's not in there. Most platforms have a spot for you to add a preheader, but if they don't, you just need to know that that first line of live text that you have, it's going to get dropped into that spot. For instance, in this example, Coyle's Bake Shop, they didn't have a preheader, so their email just rolled right into the preheader. Remember, you can double the length of content in a preheader as opposed to a subject line. So you don't need to be super short. You could actually write a touch of something. Preheaders are also a great spot to squeeze in more content. You can add another call to action, a coupon code, You can almost use it like a small table of contents for, say you're doing a newsletter and you've got a lot of items in there. And I'd also encourage you to try new things. I mean, you can use a subject line as the setup to a joke and the pre-header as the punchline. We've also done something for a client where they send both an English list and a Spanish list, and we'll do an English subject line and a Spanish pre-header, and then on the Spanish email, we'll flip it. So don't be shy in trying new things, new tones even. You know, our culture shifts over time, and what worked one day won't always work in the future. Let's talk about the body of an email. This is where you have headlines and body copy and images. This email itself is lovely. It's a Grammarly email. It's pretty easy to scan, and there's a bunch in it. You know, over the years, I've seen emails grow in length, and often it's due to, Wi-Fi being stronger, just cell phone signals being stronger, more images, heavier file weights can be downloaded and absorbed within an email. But nonetheless, no matter how long you make that email or how much is in there, it still needs to be scannable. I need to be able to look at this extremely quick and get an idea of what's in it, because there may be a section 2/3 down that's relevant to me. Do you remember how email's like a school bus? That's true right here. It's a good idea to keep one big idea or common theme per email. People are going to scroll, but you have to keep it simple. You have to get to the point. Another great rule of thumb for a copywriter: don't make people read, let them scan. And there's a difference between reading something carefully and just being able to quickly scan it. There is grammar and there is marketing, and sometimes they cross over, but they don't always cross over. I would recommend that you use lots of subheads, and you want to ensure that there's enough strength to them and they look important and they're a little more visual than normal text, so a user can quickly scan them and understand them. Here's a test. Remove the body copy from your email. Would people still understand your message? Because there's a good chance they're never going to read that body copy anyways. I often try to make it just so you can read the headlines and the call to actions to get all the info you need. Use bullets, use numbers, use lists, whatever it takes. One really effective strategy is pairing your headline and your hero image together. Together they can tell a story, because some people are just going to stare at images, and some people are going to read deeply, and you want to be able to speak to both. On this example, the one on the left does a really great job. With the headline, it's talking about a background, and it aligns with this interesting illustration or photo illustration. And the one on the right, it's close. I actually question if the headline works well with this particular illustration. It says 25%, but it says I'm almost there. Is that 25% left, or am I 25% in to it? There's a little bit of dissonance happening here. But I would say that I applaud the effort they wrote to the image. Writing to an image is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of practice. And a tip, if you want to practice with your team, here's one of my favorite things to do: the Caption Contest. Take an image like this, give your team 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 90 seconds and say, I need as many captions as you got, and then let's go ahead and share them. Another great example, you could take this image and have everybody give you a headline to go with it. By the way, I didn't write that headline. I grabbed it off a meme, but you get the idea. I just also really like this meme. In marketing, writing to the tone of Bob Ross sometimes comes through pretty well, in which you want to be approachable. You want to use normal words. You don't want to talk over people's head. You want everybody to know that they can be part of what you're doing. So my advice here, skip the tech speak. You can describe technical things in simple terms. And we're talking about word choice. Is the language down to earth? Does it avoid cliches and jargon? Tech speak itself is distancing. It's hard to build a relationship when you use tech speak. Just say what you mean. Workflow could probably be added to this list. I want to make a quick comment about exclamation points. My advice to you would be to quit using so many of them. Adding an exclamation point, that's not going to make things exciting. It's more interesting to just present exciting information or new information or relevant information. What I always tell copywriters on my team is, I'm going to issue you 1 exclamation point per email. You don't have to use it. It's probably better if you don't. And unused ones, they don't roll over. So like I mentioned earlier, there's grammar and then there's marketing. Odds are if you've used a semicolon, you're writing at too advanced a level for email. Not that the people who are reading it can't read at advanced levels, but in the amount of energy they have to put towards your email and the amount of time that they have, you need to keep it simple. So just go ahead and break it into 2 short sentences. Short, quick, succinct sentences will always take the day in email. So this is an ellipsis, ... It's for the sentence that never stops and just keeps going. Just write the sentence. Put a period on it. Keep moving. What is a screen reader supposed to do with all these ellipses anyways? How is that going to get translated? Here's an important typography comment that I would like to make. Centered text is great for a headline or a short label, but more than a couple lines of type and you're really making people work. It takes more time to read centered text, and there's a great chance that I'll lose my place. Centered copy looks nice under a centered headline, and I understand the balance that often you're looking for visually, but emails aren't art projects, and long passages of centered text are not readable. Left-align body copy is easier to read than centered text for paragraphs. It's just easier for your eye to bounce back to that left line over and over again. Without a straight left edge, there's no consistent place where users can move their eyes to when they complete each line. If you centered a hero headline and you had a line of body copy below it, as long as when the email is shown on a smaller, narrower screen, it doesn't wrap 4 or 5 lines, you're going to be okay. It could wrap a line and you're probably okay. So let's talk about the call to action. To me, one of these has a strong call to action and the other is weak. Which do you think? Personally, I'm going to go with the camera store on the right. If I click that, I actually know what's about to happen. Shop cameras. The one on the left, learn more, I'm less sure what's going to happen when I get there. Am I going to see videos or articles or gated content? Are they going to try to take my credit card information right then? Be clear with what's going to happen, because when people invest a little bit of time into your brand, if they have a good experience, they're going to remember that and you're going to build a little bit of trust. If you trick them in any way or they stumble into the wrong spot and they waste time, they're going to remember that. You're not going to develop the trust that you want. So let's talk a little bit about types of call to actions. So when you're writing one, here's 2 things to consider. Be specific. And this is a lot like a subject line again, isn't it? A subject line that's trying to get you into an email, and here's a call to action that I'm trying to get you to a landing page or to an app. And the second deal, after being specific, is add a strong verb at the start. The reader is going to take a chance on you, and if what happens is what they expect, I mentioned this a second ago, it'll build trust. So let's look at the ones on the left. These are engaging, they're quick, they're short, they describe what's going to happen, there's a verb at the front of it. I know that if I click this, action is going to be taken. The one on the right, I consider this column a lost opportunity. If you use read more, learn more, view all, see more, none of these actually tell me exactly what's going to happen when I get there. And by the way, click here is the worst call to action of all time. People know how to use the internet. They've known for a long time. And in an email, really, there's nothing else you can do other than click that button. So to waste the phrase click here in a button is basically suggesting you forgot to write the call to action. So when writing call to actions, being specific is very important. You want to telegraph what's going to happen as they're going to click. Rather than shop now, consider being even more specific. Shop new jackets. Rather than learn more, consider being more specific and saying watch the video. Don't make me guess. Let me decide if it's relevant. Don't make me go and figure it out. Use strong verbs. Active phrases add energy. Visit deals. What about dash for deals? See options. What about inspect options? Part of it you're going to have to decide based on your own brand voice. And we're going to talk about this in the 3rd video, Bedside Manner for Brands, about interpreting brand voice into a moment. But you're going to have to think about the moment you are in the customer journey and what that tone is and what that call to action might be, and that there needs to be a resonance to that moment. One other thing to consider here. Do you remember the 3-5-7 rule from the first video? Well, here we are. Consider how your headline and your call to action work together. They're often the strongest elements on a page design-wise and the first things the readers will see. Headlines, call to action, subheads. When you put your email together, just open it up and scan through those and see if you get the full message. There's this concept that I learned about in journalism school about Grazers and Delvers. Newspapers figured this out at a certain point because they were just giving walls of gray text where not everybody was a Delver. They weren't going to read to the very end. They were Grazers. They were going to open the paper and they're going to flip through the paper, and things needed headlines and we needed images with captions and need a little fast fact box that could describe something in the article that's impacting the community. And those were for the Grazers. Those were the people who are just going to flip through quickly. Often many of us are Grazers until we see something that truly interests us, and then we delve. We are all a little bit of both of those, and I need to be ready to speak to both of those types of readers. So to recap writing to engage. In the subject line and preheader, you want to set clear expectations. Keep your subject line to 35 to 50 characters, and don't forget your preheader, which can actually be twice the length. When writing the body, don't make people read, let them scan. You want to align your images with the headline. You want to partner all of your elements. You need to skip the text speak. And when using centered body copy, it's for short bursts only. It's not for long form. When creating calls to action, you need to be specific. You need to help people understand what's about to happen if they click. And always lead with a strong verb. All right, well, that's the second section of our series, Writing to Engage. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Bedside Manner for Brands, which offers a framework for interpreting your brand's voice into the right tone across the customer journey. I'll see you there.